So welcome everybody to a live episode of the Hardscape Growth Show. We're joined by Zach Kitzmiller, once again of Kitzmiller Design Solutions. We're talking design, we're talking about how that can impact your business. So why don't we just dive right into it. Zach, thank you for joining us on the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you and our business?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, hold on. Why don't you tell us a little about yourself and your business?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. So I started Kitzmiller Design about 2.5 years ago, and our core mission is to help design build pros win with design. And so we work with firms all over the country, contractors, design build organizations, to help them really elevate their business and create the projects that the designs and the projects that they really want to build. And it's challenging for a lot of them. So we're able to go in and really help them, figure that out and provide a fulfillment service. And it's been really fun over the last couple of years. It's been a lot of building, and I feel like we're still building, but it's been a lot of fun. So
how many design professionals work with your firm now?
Yeah, so we've got, myself, I started the business. We've got lead designer and then 2 other full-time designers and a project manager. So it's about 5 or 6 of us now.
Okay, and you're doing designs coast to coast, Canada and the U.S. How did that come to be? Like, what was the inspiration to do that, not just focus on design build work or just design work in your local area?
Well, when I started the business, I wanted it to be scalable from the beginning. Being that we're a design-only firm, was a little bit limiting to me to think that we're just going to stay in one location with technology and different things like these techo showcases and stuff like that. We felt like we could really reach a lot of businesses throughout the country and make an impact pretty quickly. So we started that way, and it's been really cool to work in different regions of the country and see different materials, different plants, different design styles. We get to learn as a team, and the clients that we work with also get to learn a little bit more too about some of the things that we can bring to the table because we've got some experience in other areas. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool business model.
Sounds cool. You get to touch a lot of different stuff from all over the place. If we're talking about helping members of our audience here in person and members of our audience listening to this episode later on when it's uploaded to iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Spotify or on the hardscaper.com website, one of the things that we want to be able to address today is some of the things that I could do as a contractor to elevate the design aspect of my business. We're in a period where demand for our services has never been higher. The recognition of an investment in my home has never been more prominent, has never been more important. Yeah. So the requirement for sound design skills and abilities has never been stronger either. And knowing that, I think that as a contractor, I need to understand what are the core principles of a successful design that I can integrate into my business so that I can take the next step and make sure that I'm not only meeting my customers' expectations, I'm exceeding them so that I can keep charging top dollar, I can keep growing my business.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we get to have that dialogue with our clients and really anybody in the industry pretty regularly. And we like to think of it like, we want to create designs that are creative and functional. You get a lot of scenarios or situations. I know I did when I was in the design build world where, you can be really creative, but the design didn't function, or, maybe the design functioned well, but it was lacking creativity. And so we try to blend those two things to, create something that's feasible, buildable, but that's also creative. And the third thing really is, we want to match the architecture of the home, the style of the property, and things like that. So those are probably the 3 things that we focus on from a design standpoint when we go into a project or when we're advising a client. Focus on how to get those designs to be creative, functional, and that match with the property.
So what does that actually look like?
Yeah.
Those are fun words. But
it's 100%. Yep, 100%. So what we do is, we look at the property and we break it down into basically 3 steps.
Okay.
We start first with, we call it like following instructions, but you could call it design objectives, or maybe it's a kitchen area, dining and living room or something like that. we want to get that done first, come up with a layout that hits all of those points.
So basically, what this design needs to
exactly the
to
basics. In other words, if we don't do this, we're going to fail, right?
Okay.
We're not going to come up with a good design.
That's the first step.
That's the first step. The second step is, we call it using common sense, which is, we don't want to propose things that are silly. We don't want to forget about something. Once we've got the basics down, we can kind of add things or take things away or shift things around that can make the design better. But we want to make sure we're using common sense, sound, what does that mean? Sound build practices,
okay.
Things like that. And then at the end, we get to use our own discretion. That's our third kind of step is, what can we do now to make it really pop or really stand out? And if you go through that progression, it's, you can very quickly and efficiently come up with a pretty good design. And I know a lot of guys struggle with design and they spend hours and hours and hours. And, we've figured out how to very quickly get through really robust projects. And that's really what our team focuses on is those 3 steps in that order. And when we do that, it usually comes out pretty good.
So can we take a little more of a tangible track with that?
Yeah.
And say, like, we have a project. Maybe we take even the project that we just saw here today.
Yeah.
That was a 20 by 60, 21 by
Yeah.
62 is the exact size of the lot.
Yeah.
The space we had to work with was about 20 by 40. We knew that we needed a sunbathing area, we needed a dining area, and we needed a fire pit kind of lounge area. Those were 3 musts that the project needed to have. So when we were designing it, we created those 3 distinct zones right off the bat.
Yep.
So it was clear for the client, this is what you asked for, these are the areas, and they're defined in the space to really create a larger, it gives the impression of it being a larger space because they're rooms. They're all small, but they're not just one big swath of pavement with some furniture and some things in there. Once that's done, what's the common sense aspect that you're talking about?
So it's a lot of little things. It's things like, how does the furniture set within those spaces? Is it too big? Is it too small?
Okay.
What's the flow of traffic like? Does the space accommodate people well?
So
how many people are we accommodating? Things like that.
So what are some basic questions that maybe you ask, or things that you do?
Yeah.
Are there standard dimensions? A table with chairs to seat a family of 4 requires at least this much space.
Yeah, we've got
fire feature needs to have at least this much space around it. What are some of those rules?
Yeah, we have some of those for sure. I mean, we want to look at, when we're dealing with fireplaces or fire pits more specifically, what is a good minimum radius? Maybe it's 8 feet or something like that, so that we're not scrunched together. A lot of times we're thinking about, do we want a built-in bench or do we want to use seating? Those things really matter because you don't want to get to the end and find out you want to put chairs there, but there's not enough room, or that you want to sit on the bench, but it's so far away that it's not practical with the fire pit. So those are all questions that we try to answer, and it's kind of become second nature for us, but that we try to think through the design process. And that's really where, like you said, the common sense part of it comes into play. We don't want to run into steps. We don't want to run into posts. We want to make sure that there's a good flow. Like you said, we do ask a lot about, how many people are going to be in the backyard. A lot of times, homeowners will say, oh, we want to have 25 people in our backyard. And
how often are you doing it?
The reality is that's a really, really unique design because it's going to be tough to accommodate that without just, going crazy. So, we try to nail down, what is the purpose of the space? What are the goals? What do you want to get out of it? So that we can then propose something that is very specifically suitable for things like that. How many people? What are we doing back here? Some people, it's all about kitchens and grilling and food and stuff like that. Others, they want, a pavilion with nice furniture and, couch pillows and stuff like that, and it's more of a lounge space. So it really depends on how you're using the space to how we prioritize those different things and make sure that there's a good flow and it's still creative and still functional and things like that. So
what's a big mistake that you made early on that you learned from that you would be willing to share?
So that others don't that's probably a whole other podcast.
Well, we're here, so we're
do
it.
Yeah, no, one of the big mistakes that we made working with contractors in the beginning, and really we're just now figuring this out more and more, is we want to build accurate designs, right? And we want to create things that these guys can build. And so before it was like, send us a couple photos and a couple, quick rundowns of what you want, we'll put something together. And now we're taking a little bit more of an accurate approach. We want more information. We're working more closely with topography or dimensions of a home. We're thinking about things like drainage and different stuff like that. So it's something that we've learned over time, that if we're going to be really good at what we do, that we've got to make sure we have information up front. And so that's something that we've changed, and it's starting to work out a lot better. We're able to elevate a little bit, and I think it ultimately serves the contractor and really the homeowner a lot better, because they get the better result in the end.
So, I'll ask from the perspective of a contractor, because I've built many jobs that I did not design, that left me cursing for most of the build because dimensions didn't make sense, or it was resulting in a lot of waste of material. If this patio was just a little bit longer, we wouldn't have to do this entire 30-foot run of cuts. What is the approach that you take to make sure that it is actually buildable, that it is, I don't want to say optimized, but I don't have a better word coming to me right now. It's just, there's some value engineering that's been built into the design so that it's easier for the contractor, because I think that's probably, and you guys can tell me if I'm wrong here, but it's probably one of the biggest reasons why I would be reluctant to outsource the design aspect, because they're not there on site. They don't see the lay of the land. They don't see the way the light hits the house and hits the yard and where the sun sets. And I'm sure that's information I could communicate, but that's all stuff that if I am used to doing the designs myself, I feel more comfortable knowing that I can build this. But it may not be the fastest way for me to grow my business, or it may not be the thing that I'm best at. Maybe I'm really good at building stuff. Designing, I'm okay, but I'm not wowing people, and I could use that edge that maybe you could bring. So what do how do you tackle that, or what do I need to do as the contractor to make sure we can work together?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge. You're always going to have some level of adjustments in the field, right? I mean, we can't get everything perfect down to the inch, but when you say, optimizing a design, our firm is built on the idea that everybody that works with us is from design build. So they've been in the field, they've managed projects, they know the products, they know the installation methods. So we're coming at the design from a practical standpoint, just with our own experience. And that's not something that you get a lot of, I feel like, with many designers or architects who don't necessarily have that experience in the field. And so we're able to have a conversation with, let's say you're the contractor and you want to build a patio and you want to reduce cuts, and we're looking at this product or that product, and our team is able to follow along with that and say, okay, well, we're going to use these pavers and we're going to do this band or border and make it to where we're minimizing these cuts. Whereas the opposition to that would be, oh, let's create this crazy cool design that looks great, but it's going to be miserable to build. So the first thing really is, our team is trained and has that experience to build things and create things that are able to be built in a somewhat streamlined way. The other thing is we're really big on education. So we come to events like these. We try to do product knowledge. We're still a young company. We've got a lot of goals in that department, but I think that we have to continue to stay on top of our clients' needs, what's working for them in the field, with the projects that we assist on, what's not. We meet with them regularly to be able to go over those things and continue to tweak, what we're producing for them, whether it's their preference, whether it's just a general standard in the business. But then, going out, learning about more products, learning about installation methods, it's always changing. So we feel we've got to stay, on top of that and, make sure that what we're doing is relevant to, these contractors they're coming to us because they want to save time, right? So we want to help them save as much time as we can, and it's a lot of communication. It's a partnership. There's definitely work that we need the contractor to do. You mentioned things like the sun and a lot of details that you might gather on site. We're pretty creative with how to get that information either on our own or very easily from the contractor.
What are some of those ways?
Like we use aerial imagery, we use GIS data that we can grab from the county to figure out dimensions of a property, or how the property's oriented. We work with, if we're working with a new build, we'll get with the architect who's drawing up the plans. We'll get information from them. There's always something that we can usually do to, kind of think through some of those obstacles. And then, of course, if those things aren't available, then we're going to rely on the contractor to get us some information. And we've made it really easy for them to do that, through online forums and working with a dedicated project manager and things like that. So
are they doing like a sketch at minimum, or like what's
so
your process look like?
Yeah, so we ask for a few things from the contractor for each project. It's the first thing is complete our online form. So that's really the first way that they give us the information about the project. We ask some really pertinent questions about the project. In that form, they're able to submit site photos. We show examples of what we're looking for. We want to see the full structure. We want to see the whole backyard. So we'll get that. The third thing is, a site plan or topo, something that does show the footprint of the home or the boundary lines, things like that. And then the fourth thing is a sketch. So we want to see, not that they need to draw out the entire design, but like in the example with Techo, maybe there's, the drain, we want the drain to run this way. We want the shed to stay back
these
here.
Are 3 areas.
They could sketch that out. Yep.
Yeah.
And they can be they can be as simple or as complex as the contractor wants, but we're just looking for a way for them to tell the whole story. So that sketch is the fourth thing, and the fifth thing is kind of optional, but it's kind of fun too. It's just a walkthrough video. So the contractor's in the backyard, they've met with the homeowner, or they're taking some measurements. They pull out their iPhone and they do a quick walkthrough, and that kind of helps solidify everything else. So those are the 5 things that we get from the contractor. We process all of that. We have a meeting, we discuss all of the things that they've submitted, make sure we have a good understanding of the project, and then it's off to the races.
So if I zoom out of your process a little bit and I come back to like our original portion of the conversation here, based on that process that you do have and the things that your team does do, what are some things that you see right now in design, hardscape design or landscape design, that is maybe they're common mistakes or they're missed opportunities? What are some of the things that anybody here or anybody listening could immediately get better at just by paying attention to this 1 or 2 things?
It's funny, like I would say just getting 10 clear site photos is a huge help, right? Sometimes we get projects and we're looking at the ground, or we're seeing half of the home, or as a contractor, you're not thinking all the time about 3D modeling, right? We're thinking about other things, and so if we get really clear photos and we get those things that I mentioned, it can make all the difference in the world. A project that can be extremely smooth, or one that can be a little bit more rocky because we're trying to fill in the blanks, and then we've got inaccurate things. So photos are huge. The walkthrough video, that's another one where if you do that every time, we love it. Our team loves it, and we want to understand the project as much as we possibly can, so that we can help you.
That could be helpful even if I was doing the design myself.
100%. Yeah, these are all things that.
Because even as you're building out that model, let's say I'm using SketchUp, I'm just doing a basic 3D model.
Yeah.
If you don't have all the angles, you may not remember that there's a tree that casts a whole bunch of shade over here. So maybe we don't want to have the patio right here. Maybe we want to move it over 5, 6, 7 feet. Yeah. Those are things that are easy to miss. Yeah. Because when you're there on site, you can visualize like what you could do.
Exactly. It's subconscious almost, and you got to take that out of, the proper, your process like the back of your hand. You've got to figure out how to get that, and that's what we try to help our clients do ultimately. It does work within the design build. If you've got in-house designers, and a lot of guys, they talk about they spend so much time going across town to meet with this client and that client. They're trying to get measurements because they got to do designs, and you can adopt a similar process. Maybe there's somebody on your team that could go out and get those 5 things. It's pretty easy to do, right? Yeah. So it's just a matter of we've done this so many times. We've figured out the pain points, and okay, here's what we need. And whether you're working with us, another remote solution, or even in-house, having the information up front, and maybe that's the answer to your question is, instead of just rushing through something that you throw into a program really quick, take the time, visit the site, get everything, have yourself a checklist if you want in the truck or something, get all the information that you need, go to the site one time. If you have to go again, go again. It's better to have that information than to try to just push it through without it. So
yeah. 2D or 3D? What do you start with?
We're big believers in 3D, and that's probably one of the biggest differences about us than traditional design. You know, we adopted a 3D workflow probably a year ago maybe, and we were currently doing 2D. Everything was done in CAD.
Yeah.
And what we found was we were going through like 10 and 15 revisions because, you know, you've got 3 parties involved between us, and if it's just a design build, you've at least got 2 parties involved. Mm-hmm. And so to keep people on the same page and understanding the creative part of it, it was almost impossible. So we would get through CAD, and then finally we would feel like we settled on something, and then we would do 3D, and it was like, everyone would be like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did that? And I was like, well, why aren't we not designing in 3D then? You know, and it takes a little bit more time on the front end, but we completely flip-flopped and we started in 3D. You know, there's obviously some, like I said, some accuracy things we have to pay attention to in the beginning still, but we want to see that model come together in a concept from the beginning, so that we can get good feedback from the homeowner, the contractor, us, make sure we love the design before we go through and dot all the I's and cross all the T's. So,
how detailed do you get in that initial presentation?
So we break our process, it's really a 1-2 punch. It's concept versus development. And just high level, you know, our concept phase is in, you know, we offer a 3D and 2D deliverable with each phase of design. And so the model and the CAD kind of grow and develop as we move through the process. But initially what we want to show is a 3D model that, you know, like I said, has that concept pretty much worked out. We're not going to show a lot of plants or, you know, spec all the different materials. You know, it's going to be pretty basic, but we want to be able to get, it's a general, you know, are we on the right track? You know, did the information you sent and the meeting that we had, are we still on the same page before we get 20 or 30 hours into a project and realize, oh crap, the pool was supposed to go the other way or something, you know? So that's the first step, is that concept, and it seems to really help keep everybody on the same page. And
do you often present multiple options up front, or do you go with one and then we see how they react and then we adapt? Yeah,
for us, it's we have not adopted the multiple design approach. It's a lot of work to do one as it is, and I think the key really is if you ask the right questions when you meet with the homeowner, and you know you have a great design process, the chances are, you know, we're going to hit the nail on the head with the project that we design. Where I find doing multiple versions of designs, it's like, you know, maybe it's not so easy. You know, you didn't get a good feedback from the homeowner, and so you're like kind of, you know, throwing something against the wall and trying to figure out what they want. So it's one of those things where we want to know what they want. We want to know what the contractor wants to do, and get that first concept out that's 90% there right away. So
we're about to turn it over to questions from the audience here. Is there anything else you want to add that maybe we didn't hit yet?
No, I think it's something that, you know, design is something that I think is really growing, right? One of the reasons we love techo-bloc is it's design centric. It's cool to be able to, you know, stay on these trends, on top of these trends, the products, stuff like that. I think a lot of contractors, you know, we try to call them design build pros now instead of contractors. Yeah. Because really they are design build pros, right? I mean, they want to provide something to their market that's different, that's unique. You know, we talk about, you know, how do they establish themselves as the authority on outdoor living in their area? Because that's different. Outdoor living is different than landscaping, I think, right? We say landscaping, but it's outdoor living that we really want to focus on. And I think a lot of design build pros are on that same page, but they don't maybe know how to pivot their firm from being, you know, builders who have to design to being designers who also get to build. And so I think that's the biggest, you know, that's kind of the next chapter, I think, in the industry is, you know, how do we go from, you know, oh my gosh, I got to win this job, or we just got to try to get this job, to, you know, we're the best. We offer an incredible product and service. People come to us because we're designers, not builders. How do we win with design? And so that's something we're really passionate about, and we're going to focus on.
Awesome.
So.
All right, cool. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Anybody have any questions about design or outsourcing design or just working with subcontractors in general? Yeah. John, you want to?
So can you recommend design software for someone who's not familiar with CAD, is just starting off? We're a contractor and we want to incorporate that design process so people can visualize, get the wow factor, and we can really sell it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably one of the most popular questions that we see through social media, and I could answer that question a couple different ways. I would say, do you have someone in your business that is going to be a designer, or are you the owner and you're just trying to do designs and what program can I get all of a sudden to whip them out, Because there's different, you don't have to answer, but there's different approaches to this. It's if you want to be an entrepreneur and a business owner, it's not worth you learning design software. It's not like landscaping. It takes somebody that's wants to be behind the computer all day and learn softwares and things like that.
It's such a particular skill that
you need
to develop.
Yeah. People that like to be outside usually don't like to sit behind the computer. It's just competing differences. But if you wanted to get started, I would say there's some softwares out there that are under $1,000, kind of a one-time thing. I started myself with real-time landscape probably 8 or 9 years ago. It's simple to learn. There's a ton of support online for it. So if you're just getting started and you want to just get your feet wet, I would start there. We use a SketchUp workflow. It's more CAD based, so it's a little bit higher learning curve. Obviously, I highly recommend it, but I'd rather see design build pros leverage either in-house design and let those guys figure out that workflow, or if it is an outsourced solution. Focus on running your business and growing your business, and let somebody else do the design like you're letting a foreman run the job,
And then
hopefully that answers your question.
And then regardless of either one of those ways, we have on the designer toolbox on techo-bloc.com, we have
it's a great resource,
all the textures, all the models, everything that you can just pop right in there. So
we utilize that a lot. That's a great point. The designer toolbox is I think our designers say it's the best in the business.
I like to think so.
Of course you do, right? So we have really good textures and assets from techo-bloc. So if you do get into that design world, definitely check that out.
Yeah. I mean we purposely shot every single piece of product that we make, so that's as realistic as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, real time it's a good entry level one that has a ton of support through Facebook groups, through YouTube channels, and obviously their own support. It really flattens out that learning curve. I would agree with what you said there.
For
sure. Any other questions? Yeah. Go ahead.
So for us, for us, it's the challenge of cost of design, right? So a lot of our clients, existing clients, we have a maintenance-based customers, and then we'll do the design because we know we're going to sell it more than likely. Probably 90% we sell to them, or maybe 100 in some way, shape, or form. So I guess my question is, if I was to outsource, how are some ways to justify that cost? I mean, I know there's, maybe that's not the right way to ask it. Maybe you can elaborate more, like why should I use you, I guess, and how can I charge the client for that? I guess is more what I'm asking.
That's a backup question.
That's a great question. What I would ask you back, instead of saying, why should you use us, I would say, how do we get your firm to understand the value of design? Whether you end up partnering with us or it's a different solution, we get that question a lot, is how do I pay for this? And I think it comes from the idea that, as a contractor, you're doing the design as a means to an end, and you're thinking about deposits, and you're thinking about crediting them back, and you're thinking about, how do we put as little investment into this so that if we don't win the project, we're not wasting time. I would flip that around and say, how can you attract the type of client that wants to hire you for design? It's not a deposit, it's not credited back, it's you have a design fee. You sell design like you sell pavers or you sell anything else.
It's a product that you sell.
It's a product or
like
service that you sell. And when you pivot to that, the sky's the limit. We've got clients that, charge $2,000 for a design up front, just to get started, that used to do them for free. We've got clients, I shouldn't say clients, we've got partners that are charging upwards of $20,000 in certain markets in the country just for a design package. So it's really about, and I'm not saying do that right tomorrow, but it's one of those things where whatever that number is for you, you have to think about your firm and, okay, what do we do well? How can we win clients over, win homeowners over? What does that process look like? And once you build that out and figure out, your offer to them, then you can come to a partner like us and say, hey, we're working with some really amazing clients. We're building some amazing projects. We want to make it really efficient now. Can you help us with that? And that's where we would want to help you. Or if you're doing in-house, even if you've got designers that you want to go hire, you have to pay their salaries, and there's an expense there too, right? So whether you're outsourcing it, whether you're doing it in-house, the key really is how do you become, like I said earlier, instead of being a builder who has to do design, become that designer that also builds. Does that make sense? Okay.
Do you charge for designs now? Sometimes. Why sometimes? What merits free versus paid?
So, like I said, for us, we're working with a lot of existing clients, so I don't feel like a need to charge them. I'm charging them indirectly, not directly, right? So I think my question's more geared towards direct costs and okay, charging that design.
Yeah. What I would do is if let's say you've got an existing client and you're doing an enhancement or something, and that's you're like, man, I would sell the features and benefits of why it's so important to work through the design process. You don't want to end up with a backyard you didn't want. We don't want to run into extra costly things, because we had to make decisions on the fly. And so Mrs. Jones, it's $2,000 or $2,500, but we really feel like it's a steal because we're really going to help you, build this project the right way. If you believe it and you trust it, they're going to as well, And if they don't, then we move on to the next one, right?
I mean, there's value in good design.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right? Like no one disputes that.
Yeah.
Yet we're reluctant to sell it. We give that value for free.
Yeah.
And I don't see why we need to do that. Most people have shifted away from free estimates because your time, your experience, your expertise has value, and it guides the client towards the right decision. Design is the next step in that decision-making journey for the client, and that has even greater value. So I don't think that anybody should be selling themselves short with regards to design. Whether you're a novice or an expert, it still has a value.
Yeah.
I think additionally, it aids tremendously in the pre-qualification because, you're saying you do a lot of business for existing clients because you have the maintenance contracts and all that stuff, and that's fine. But those may not be the best design build clients for you. So if you want to be able to tap into a better market potentially, or a bigger market, or a higher volume or a higher value project or type of client, then you need to do something different to shift gears and get into that. And having those higher end designs, even if you don't sell them all, or even if you don't end up building them all, is what I mean to say.
Yeah.
Having those designs as part of your design portfolio, having those designs as part of what is on your website and what is on your social media and what's in whatever advertising pieces that you may have, that helps shape the brand and the perception of what you're capable of and the value that you bring to the table. And you may start just by selling designs for what they cost you. And it's not a profit center. Right. But over time, I am confident, and you should be too, that it can become a profit center. And there are many contractors that I've gotten to know over the past few years that have added design sales as a profit center for their business because they're good at it and there's a need for it. And you won't close every bid into a sale. You just won't. But you can sell every design you make. And then you're not wasting any hours.
So one thing we do to combat free estimates or wasting a lot of time with actual designs is say, look, we'll give you a written proposal, but it's not going to have, dimensions or sketches or anything like that. So that has eliminated some of that, especially for smaller jobs. But thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you just try it.
Yeah.
Just a couple times. That's the biggest thing I've seen. Like they try it. Like I said $1,500 for a design, and they sent me a check right away.
You'd be surprised what people will tell you, right?
Well, I'll charge them try $1,800 next time. Until it's like, okay, well, this is where we can hang out, and I'm happy doing these designs. It bothers me when we give things away that we don't need to. So I'm really just trying to get that across. Let's stop doing that.
I would add one other quick thing. If right now, instead of like sometimes charging for the design when you think you can, flip that around as well and say, look, we charge for the design, and use your own discretion. Maybe you've got a homeowner that you've worked with for 10 years and, it's an enhancement and if you want to say, hey, normally we charge X, Y, and Z for this, but you've been a good customer for 10 years, we're not going to charge you that. We're going to do this for you. I wouldn't do that a lot, but, a lot of guys get hung up on that. Like they get so scared, or not that you are, but, they get that fear that, oh my gosh, I'm just going to lose so much work. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go out of business. And it's just, I don't know that it's ever happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it still establishes the value too. It's just like doing a change order on a project. Like the client comes home with a tree while you're in the middle of the build and they want you to plant the tree. You could say, yeah, no problem, I'll do it. And just, no, there's no paperwork, nothing. And that's fine. It works out to the same thing as doing a change order, saying normally we would charge $500 to plant this tree. For you, it's $0. Yeah. But that immediately sets the relationship where I have now given you something. That favor was worth something. I've given you something. So in the context of the design, I like what you just said there. Like you may want to not charge them for the design, but establishing a design has a value of this. For you, I'm going to give it to you. It increases your odds of closing the job too, because now they like you more because they feel that they're already, like I'm getting a lot of value from this relationship. I'm going to continue down this path instead of exploring that one. Yeah. So
you're in
it's
control,
all how you position things.
100%, yeah. Thanks for that question. It's a good one.
Good. Anything else? Anyone else?
I think we got a guy over here.
Oh.
How do you come up being so creative?
Instagram.
So my question is, how do you come up being so creative?
Yeah,
how do you know how to choose the right layouts for the right project and putting the right things together?
Yeah, we're obviously pulling from Instagram, from Techo. Our designers are always looking at, trends and things that we can incorporate into projects. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about, thinking through design and how we go from, hit the objectives right, and then let's be creative and figure out how it looks good and things like that. So I would say, the biggest thing you can do is just get inspired. If it's Instagram, get on Instagram. If it's, being outside and being in nature, if that's your design style, go do more of that. Attend these shows. You can learn all kinds of cool things from the stuff that, Techo does, or other people in the industry that are involved with it. But just get inspired and ultimately save those ideas, right, in your phone or something. And when it's time to go to start a design or that you go to that site, that property, and boom, you got an idea for it because you're constantly looking. So does that help?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
I would say another thing is not just looking at like what's happening in our industry. Don't just look at landscape design or hardscape design. Look at interior design too. Because the biggest thing that brings value is when you bring all the comforts of inside the home out. So look at what are the trends indoors, and if you look at the products that we have around here and the designs and the ideas that we're presenting, it's a lot of indoor stuff that's been adapted for outdoor living. And that's where people can relate to it. The average homeowner can relate to it more because they do a lot more shopping and thinking about what they're going to do inside the house than outside. So you get on their same level and you start talking the same language.
Yeah, 100%. And there's other resources out there too. I know there's some other guys in the industry that really focus on, when you say bring the inside out, what does that look like? Well, it's, I think it's Josh Gillow or somebody, in their training, Dwayne and Josh, it's living room, it's dining room, and it's kitchen. Mm-hmm. So when you think about it like that, yes, you want to come up with a creative layout, but like, if you dissect that creativity, it's usually a pretty basic formula, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So definitely get those resources and learn that process. And if you're doing it on your own, and you'll become a better designer pretty quickly, I think. So.
That answered my question perfectly.
Good.
Awesome.
Glad
Good.
to help. Glad to help.
There you go, man.
Let's do it.
All right. We got a question over here.
I can't hear.
Oh, sorry. Between the lights in our eyes and there's a
What
heater going
trends
on.
are you seeing for 2022?
Yeah, we're seeing all kinds of things. I think structures are huge. Getting shade in the backyard I think that was maybe a trend for last year, but I think it's carrying over even more this year. Not only just shade, but I don't ever want to send a design out that does not have some type of vertical dimension. Whether it's a small wall or it is like a structure that they showed in the show today.
Yeah, Toya grid pergola.
Yeah,
it defines
something
the space.
100%, or even some water features that can give some elevation. We don't want flat patios, right? We want a really organic space that you can interact with. So I think that's a huge trend. I think another thing, not to steal your idea, but bringing the inside out is a big thing right now. I can't remember a time when a design didn't require a kitchen or a fireplace or some type of element that you might have inside, but that people want outside now. They want to, I don't know, people want to sit outside, and I think it's cool, it's great, it's our business, but people want to watch the Super Bowl outside. They want to I've had clients, they want to sit in their pool and watch TV and like grill at the same time, and it's kind of crazy, but those are some big trends that we see. And I think too, modern is another big one. It's one of the reasons why I love techo-bloc, because we're able to use their products in a lot of modern designs, and I think that that style is coming into the U.S. a lot more. Slabs and clean lines and less is more type of approach is really big and growing and taking off as well. So.
What we're seeing on the Canadian side, if I can answer because I'm from Canada, but and one of the things that we see is like Europe will be maybe 10 years ahead of a market like this, and then you'll get Quebec, which is more the European French part of Canada, which will be about 5 years before, and then you'll get into Toronto and stuff that'll be about 2-3 years before the trends that we see here. So what we're seeing there is a lot of what you saw in the videos today. So they're neutral colors, but they're warm, like the beige cream color with a little bit of brown. So it makes it a little softer, a little more organic feeling, but it's not rustic. It's not woodsy.
Right.
It's still very clean, very refined, but warmer, more inviting. And I think we're seeing that now because just a few years ago, what we were seeing was very high contrast, very, very, very modern, like light grays and blacks, and a lot of high contrast. And it's very loud and very aggressive. And I think like now people are a little tired of everything going on right now. So the trends are kind of like softening things. The edges are getting a little softer. Curves are starting to come back a little bit, but really staying with the smooth, large scale, but warmer tones. That's really what we're seeing. And I think another thing, like from a functional standpoint, we can say what we want about the pandemic and everything is done, but it has definitely brought a lot more work from home. And you don't want to be cooped up in your house the whole time. I believe personally that's why I want a kitchen outside, why I want a TV in my pool. Why I don't want to be enclosed anymore because I never get to go outside. So I need to have that. So things like Wi-Fi outdoors. Like that's huge, especially if you're talking about like the Coastal Source speakers. Like if you have the Wi-Fi, then you can stream whatever music you want anywhere in your house or outside from any corner of your lot. So I think that's important. The shade structures become important because if I want to bring my laptop outside and do a conference call from there, I need shade because otherwise I can't see the screen. So these are little things that when you present them to the client, they really stand out as a very strong attention to detail about their life. So questions when you meet them of like, do you work from home? What percentage of your time is spent working from home? Those open the door for you to propose these things that were probably not even on their radar in the first place, but become very highly valued things for them when it's time to present it. And then they fall in love with these things and they fall in love with you because you're really thoughtful about like how to make their life better through what you're about to create for them.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yep, that's good. That's good stuff.
It's a good question.
Cool. Yeah, great question.
We'll take one more. Anyone else? John, do you have a question? Okay, so I have one more then.
Yeah.
So if I am a contractor, and I am trying to take the next step with my business. I'm relatively new. I've been doing this for a year or 2 or 3. What's the biggest thing that I need to do to make that experience with the client elevated to a point where I can perhaps compete with the other companies in my area that are probably more established than me, probably have a better reputation, a bigger portfolio? What is something that I can do to kind of give me a little bit of an edge? And I'm asking you this question because you've been running your company for only two and a half years,
Yeah.
but you've grown tremendously and you're having success.
Yeah.
So how do you like differentiate to a point where you can get national recognition, you can get invited on a podcast like this after only 2.5 years?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a hard question, Alex. I think if I'm a contractor and I want to achieve that, I think I'm a little bit biased, but I think having...
Well, I'm asking, like, what do you do, you know?
I think, well, so when we work with homeowners, you know, the thing that sets us apart, because we do work with homeowners as well, just like a lot of you do, you know, it's all about our process, and that's what sets us apart. I know that's a buzzword, and it's like, what does that mean? Well,
It absolutely is.
you know, for us, like, one thing that we do is we sell education first to the homeowner, and a lot of contractors, they skip right over that. You know, they think that, you know, somebody calls, they got to lead in and, you know, okay, we got to hurry up and get them an estimate and a design and all this stuff. And what ends up happening is, you know, homeowners, when they call you, they don't know what they want and they don't know how much it costs. They didn't sit at the kitchen table the night before and put a budget together and say, well, we're going to spend $80,255 on this project, right? They have no idea. They don't know if it's $5,000 or $500,000. And, you know, when you take a pause and you get that lead and you know you want to, because here's the thing, to be successful you want to build winning projects that get people's attention, right? So in order to get those projects, you've got to have a process where you have a 5-star experience with that homeowner. And how do we do that? Well, we do that by educating them. So a lot of the things that we teach and that we talk about and our own process with homeowners is the first thing that we want to do is just like educate the homeowner, and that means we have a dialogue. It means, you know, we go over their goals, we look at their property. We don't design anything. I take that back. We do a sketch, you know, a quick sketch. But, you know, for a lot of contractors, it could just be having that call, talking to both decision makers, you know, finding out why they reached out to you. That's the first question you should ever ask. Why did you call me, Mrs. Jones? And ask them. And when they say, well, we need a patio, well, that's not really why you called me. Were they a referral? You know, are they having a problem in their family? It's those types of things that you want to gather from them and then sit down and say, here's our process, here's what we do, here's what makes us different. It's the design, it's doing one thing at a time, doing the right things at the right time. It's a huge, there's so many different things that go into it. But when you do that and you educate the homeowner and you then say, okay, do you still want to do it? You know, they're either going to learn through that process and maybe they come back in a year or two. Maybe it's not a good fit. Maybe they, you know, or they've built so much trust with you that when you do get started on step 1, really it's step 2, right? But we do it all as step 1. When they finally get started with you, it's fun, it's enjoyable, it's a win-win for both parties. So I think if you really want to set yourself apart, the key thing is to create a process where you prioritize education and communication and inspiration and all these different things with the homeowner before you do any type of design or estimating, and you should charge for it. You should charge for that. You know, if it's $500, if it's $1,000, we charge $1,000 for a homeowner to just sit down with us and talk with us about their project. And that's insane. But you know what? We get the type of homeowner, maybe it's not insane, but we get the type of homeowners who are like, you know, I really don't know much about this. I called 10 contractors and half of them didn't call me back, half of them sent me a quote, half of them want $250 for a design. And there's this one company that like just wants to sit down with me and they're gonna charge me, but it looks like they're gonna teach me about the design build process. They're gonna show me you know, projects that they've done in their portfolio. They're gonna actually look at my property to see if even what we wanna do is even possible. And we're gonna walk away with either a great relationship or they're gonna learn a lot. So they're willing to invest that money into that that experience with a contractor. I think if you can figure that out, and again, that's probably another podcast, but if you can figure that part out, you're on your way to a winning design process, and that's something that will get you in front of the right projects and homeowners that will give you that national presence and will catch people's attention.
Yeah, and I think $1,000 seems like just to hone in on that one part, like $1,000 seems like a lot of money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like,
it's really,
if you're like, what's your average project value?
Our average projects range from $3 to $10K on average, I would say.
The average design value?
Average design value,
and the project itselp
is probably 50 to 500.
So you're talking about
you're talking about a very small investment.
You're talking about 1 to 2% up front to make sure that you land on the right place, and that $100,000 investment makes sense. Yeah. And I think if you're able to project that kind of message into the market through your communications on your website, your ads, when whoever answers the phone for your company is very straightforward and upfront with what the process is, this is why we do things a certain ways to make sure that you get the most out of this exchange. Yeah. You're not going to get everyone saying yes, but you don't want everyone saying yes. If everyone's saying yes, you're wasting your time too often. So it's a little scary. It's a little scary if you haven't been doing that, but there's so much, like, you have to shift your mindset to like this. The market is an abundant place. There are more customers than we can ever do business with. There's more products than we can ever build. There's more designs than we can ever create. There's more than you can ever touch. So don't be scared. Worst case scenario, try it. If it blows up in your face, well, your phone is ringing off the hook right now anyway. So who cares?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you convince your client that they don't have a budget?
Can you convince your client that they don't have a budget?
Yes.
Like meaning the number they have in their head is a figment of their imagination and is irrelevant?
Yeah.
This number.
This is why.
Well, I think
I think so, yeah. Absolutely.
Have you done it?
For us, we don't really talk, we don't say budget. It's fine if you do, but there isn't a budget, and it's just because it's more about, who they are as people. What do they really want out of life? And I know that sounds crazy, but people don't build these backyards because, they've got nothing better to do, right? This is a big deal for them. So, and they don't know what it costs. That's the other thing. It'd be different. We know what a new truck costs. So we go into the dealership with the expectation that we're going to...
but even then, even then...
But that's not how outdoor living is.
Let me jump in. Okay, so like, you want a new truck. Okay, you just bought a truck. You go into the dealership. You've been seeing on TV, this truck is, $55,000. You go on the website, you start building it out. You're like, well, maybe I'll add this option, maybe I'll add that, I don't know. Now you're looking at like 57. So you're like, okay, 57 grand. You walk in that dealership. What's the one in the showroom? Is it the one that was on the website or it's the fully loaded one? And they're like, oh, what the hell? I'm just sitting in. And you get in and you're like, oh, shit, this is fucking nice. And then you're like, how much is this? Oh, this is 67. Oh, well, what's the payment? Well, the payment's only going to be an extra $4 a month. We're like, wow, $4. I think I could swing that. So we do it to ourselves all the time, and yet we're scared to do it with other people. I'll give you another example. I got married how many years ago? 8 years ago. I thought it was going to cost this much. I ended up spending almost double. And that was after we're like, okay, this venue doesn't work. We thought we could do it here. We saw it. No, this isn't good. We're going to go over here instead. That bumped it up by like 50%. And then we're like, okay, well, let's start looking at the caterers. And we bump it up again. And bump it up again. And by the time you're done, you're like, damn, this is near double. You go shopping for a house. You go look at the houses that are in your head. Like, these are the ones that make sense. This is how much I'm comfortable spending. You visit them. You're like, this is a shithole. I'm not buying this. All of a sudden, boom, you realign and you have a new expectation. It is our job to realign their expectations. They have no clue the value of what we offer. No clue at all. So we have to own that confidently because we are the professionals. This is what we do. This is our profession. You go to a doctor, he tells you you're sick, you need to do this. Do you listen? So when you call me and I tell you it's going to cost you this much, why don't you listen to me? It's the same thing. So we need to own that if we want to actually take our businesses to the next level and take the industry to the next level, and help everyone, because people will get what they actually want, not what they're willing to pay for because they don't know better.
It will push the crappy installers out.
That too. That too. It elevates the whole thing. It elevates the whole thing. So we have to do it. I mean, that's why. That's how we're going to end the show. That's why we have this podcast. That's why we do these shows. It's about bringing the industry together, helping all the professionals get better, because if we can get
100%.
better, we all win together.
Yep.
And like I said, there's more than enough business for all of us. So let's just learn from each other, and then we can all win. Cool?
Sounds good to me.
All right. That's it for this episode, everyone. Thank you very much, Zach,
Yes,
for joining
thank you.
us.
I appreciate it.
Till next time, everyone, work hard, pave harder. And once again, if you haven't been checking out the podcast, you can find it on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, and on hardscaper.com. It's free and always will be. So thank you very much, and have a great 2022 season. Thank you.